I think you notice now there's been some new chairs on the opposition benches.
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh. Okay, let's make a start then. Can I firstly thank you, welcome you all to this meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. Obviously, if you've got a mobile phone, if you could turn it off to silent. The meeting is being recorded and will be available on the company's website. And we can make a start. Item 1 of the agenda is the apologies for absence. Taylor?
We've had apologies from Councillor Howells and Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No. Okay. Item 2, declaration of interest. No. Item 3, then minutes of the last meeting, pages 3 to 14. There is the action record as well. So the minutes of correctness only. Moved. Seconder. Thank you. Anyone against? No. If we look at the action record is on pages 9 to 14. Any comments on the action record? Norma?
Thank you, Chair. Item 5 for the 27th of November 25, mandatory training for staff. We've got a date there of July 2026, and I just wondered whether that action has been completed. And then on item 6 of the same date, NFI self-replacement checklist, I think we need a revised date there. The date we've given is 21st of January 26, without July 26. So I don't know what's happened on that. And then I think I've raised. And then the 22nd of January 26, item 5, violence against women, dates for completion of reviews. Now, I think I raised this at the previous meeting. I think we're being put back because we're going to election next year. And I said, well, actually, this work needs to be done. We need dates in place for it. And I think that's all actually.
Yeah, thanks, Norma. The obviously the first two it related to the first one was the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption policy, and the action there is for the training to take place. Obviously, we've got July 26 to come. The report certainly comes today. But can an indication be given as to when this training is going to be taking place? So that we can address that recommendation.
Chair, I'll use my update to that's for a new date.
Yeah, okay, because obviously I think it's been outstanding for some considerable time and it does need to be addressed now as a matter of urgency.
Definitely, I'll take that on board. And the self-appraisal checklist, I can send that following this meeting. I'll send it to Taylor to distribute.
Okay, and that's the item 6 issue. That's okay. If you could update members when that training is going to take place, if you could do an email, and then obviously it will be picked up in the meeting. In regards to the violence against women domestic abuse training, again, that was raised as part of the ongoing training, and I think Mark Officer was going to look at that and discuss it with WLG, because there was an issue about whether it was mandatory or not, if we remember. But I think, as Norma said, it doesn't need to be in place before the election, ready for induction of new members.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So I think we might want to just think about the wording on that one, because I think there were a couple of different things. So there's one, how many members are taking the training?
Yeah.
One. So we can get an update on that, because I think we were looking at on a rolling basis. So the other bit update was in it was also we're working on an induction program for new members for the election. So that work is underway already. So if you want some milestones in there, we can put some milestones in.
Yeah, I think that would be useful, Reece, because if we remember, I think there is to just be a one training for all staff.
And then the next level of tier training, people in management, I think, and the council as in regards to the positions. I know I spoke to you about it, it's not listening, but yeah. There was an issue about the amount of time that elected representatives have to undertake that training. Violence against women training, remember we had a discussion, is whether or not the department could look at compartmentising some of this training so elected members can do it in chunks rather than take a whole day out of their schedule to deal with one piece of training. So that would be useful. Okay, so we'll move then those to correct record and please, thank you. Can I second that? Thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the panel performance assessment. Can I thank the leader and the chief executive for coming along? And I think Ben, think can take the report.
Thank you, Chair. It's really odd sitting this side of the chamber. So yeah, just a bit of context really to the report. Obviously, is demonstrated in a good way in second report. We've done that 2021 separate requirement for each local authority to be subject to the panel assessment in every electoral cycle. Which seeks to ascertain and ensure that the council is performing its statutory functions effectively, looking at using resources effectively and appropriately, that we have effective governance in place and working effectively on key strategic priorities, which tend to focus in the areas focus that we then put forward as a council with panel to consider. So Newport City Council's assessment was undertaken in March of this year. The panel was chaired by Jack Straw, who's the former chief executive of Swansea City Council. I represent the chair and vice chair and elected members who participated in that panel assessment. We've since received a report, obviously, which is attached to the report, and the panel's findings concluded that the council has strong governance and performance management arrangements in place to support corporate plan delivery and no regulatory concerns. We have an ambitious programme of regeneration activity, whilst also continuing to tackle the ever-increasing pressures on frontline service delivery. It also concluded that we have a realistic approach to resource management, digitalisation and transformation. Some key highlights are set out at the bottom of page 2 of the report, and of course I won't read them all, but just a couple to highlight. Is that we do have a strong experience of coherent senior leadership team at the authority, that there are strong professional mature relationships between members and officers at that senior leadership level, and generally positive more generally with all members. We're well respected council with a positive can-do attitude and a well embedded culture. And the governance and connectivity between governance role and connectivity between our plans is robust. And finally, and most importantly for me, obviously, since the chief exec, the panel identified a high level of assurance in relation to the council's statutory performance, duties and activities. So these were the set. So, however, as can be expected, the panel did highlight some what I would consider lower level challenges when they triangulated some of the evidence, which we had already reflected on as a council anyway, and generally the themes of these related to member reporting and feedback loops to members, the role scrutiny in policy development, so pre-scrutiny, resident engagement and maximising the role of young people in service development and improvement as well as society, something we need to, that we could potentially improve on. And what came through quite strongly, we've known this for some time, is about developing that really clear narrative from report and reports regeneration going forward, focusing on a number of key priorities rather than perhaps trying to do everything at once. So the report obviously set out the number of recommendations, 3 recommendations, they set out in the report, and generally these were related to build on the strengths of our digital agenda, the regeneration narrative, ensuring that resources are available to underpin that. We're in a situation in Cornwall, we can't afford not to be able to be really flexible. But also believe there's a better lens site between our transformation activity and the medium-term financial plan. So that works already in train. So we've welcomed the report. It's a positive report, which I think also reflects the fact that we know what our opportunities are, but we also are aware of our challenges. And we propose to accept the recommendations as well. And we suggest responding to them via the action plan that's attached to Appendix 2. Thank you, Chair. I don't think the leader wants to just add anything to that.
Yeah, it's a really positive report. Recognising the scale of our ambitions and made out was great to praise the leadership. So that was really pleasing, both the political and senior officer level. And you know what challenges it did highlight, we already were aware of. So that's also pleasing, being self-aware. It actually says we are a self-aware council, and so there is no perfect council. And if it came out perfect, I would be more worried. So understanding those challenges and seeing other peers recognise those challenges is really important for me as well. And what I love about this process, and I was part of one of the powers, is it's non-partisan, it's non-political, it's peer-to-peer, we're trying to improve each other as a family of local government. There's no politics in this, and that just creates a safe space for all political leaders and officers of all different persuasions to have honest conversations about what they're doing really, really well and what we need to work on. And I found that very beneficial.
Thank you for that. So we're opening up for questions. Any questions? Right.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Exec, good report. Yeah. Just a question on the culture. Embedded and positive cultures throughout the organisation. It's very difficult to understand the cultures unless you are close to them. And if you look at a model of cultures, they often use the iceberg principle, where some of it's above, you can see it, but a lot of it is below the surface. Could you talk a little bit about the culture and tell us how you come to the conclusion that it's embedded in positive culture?
Well, the first thing to know, it's not we've come to that conclusion, isn't it? It's the external panels has come to that conclusion. But I think certainly to see the leadership team, we restructured the organisation back in 2021, going into 2022. And I would certainly be very, very clear that as has the directorate team about how we want to see services and how we want to work together. So the first thing that I would say as an author is very much an organisation which is focused. It's got to be about accountability and hence we've got performance management frameworks in place. But it's also about responsibility, personal responsibility, public service, doing the right thing. And I think we've built that culture up, and it was a really good example given back to us during the feedback sessions where the panel visited the housing service and our transformation activity. I can say, well, this is why we need to do what we need to do as far as transformation is concerned. But one very specific piece of feedback that we got given was that our colleagues on the front line actually know why we need to do things differently. So it is about being a welcoming organisation where we look after our staff and elected members, about us working together and able to challenge openly and honestly, but in a safe way. It gets the best out of them, so people to be council and people who personal levels.
Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, I'm really pleased to read this report, very good report, and I think it started with recommended on it. And I thought that was very good. No, I think it's very clear, the things there and responsibility to better. One of the things that I wouldn't want management to lose sight of were a couple of the issues, and I think the Chief Exec prepared some of these in their introduction. There are a couple of issues that are more managerial. I just like the assurance that they'll be taken forward. And I think the Chief Exec mentioned about joint scrutiny. I think there's actually involvement of young people as well. But there is members' experience and show responses from junior officers, for example. need more open questioning and communication having a balance between digital and library. It's easy to communications on performance. And it's just having the more managerial issue, particularly you've got to have a thick approach, but they're being taken forward as well as the more direct issues.
Thanks, Norman. Peter?
I just want to get the other question one, if I may. Yes, it's particularly important given the was the fastest in the 16 which both in Wales, Dublin, Cardiff. I've met the youth council, not to refer to as a leader, top youth council, young person, twice, very bright young lady, and I went down to youth council as well personally and listened to their and watched a video around bullying and culture and peer pressure to do things they wouldn't necessarily want to do. And I watched that video and I spoke to a lot of the youth council, very bright bunch, and they talked about being more involved in the decision making of the council and maybe shadowing cabinet members, stroke elected members about what's it like, how does it operate and so forth. And we've taken that back and we've reflected that to the new service and spoken to a lot of staff internally about how we certainly get that in place for the new administration and the new council post May 27, because it's really important.
Just on the insurance point, the action plan will be monitored by myself and the directors and obviously reported that as part of the annual assessment report as well. And you know, as if it's something issue we were aware of before we even decided that this, but people that insurance we monitor by myself and the directors and then we can about the injuries.
Any questions? Tom? Just to pick up on page 35, the top two paragraphs that are on having about relationships and doing that. I just want to, are you accepting that? What the terms, what the committee that from members saying in terms of some of the responses, is that accepted or not?
Yeah. So we did actually have a little bit of to and fro in the panel, the chair of the panel didn't vote on that point. But I think and obviously the panel didn't speak to all members, and I think because the new system changes we're trying to create, sometimes there are frustrations from the members past not getting responded to as quickly as they would be. We've also got the member officer protocol, which we will be reviewing with this year, because it does set the bar quite high in terms of who members can speak to at an officer level, and you know, the setup not by me, but that was established with the previous chief executive kind of as a result of issues arising, because as we know, this is positive in terms of our relationships with senior officers, but that doesn't happen in every council, and sometimes there can be challenges when those conversations and these interactions that further down the service area. So it's an issue we're aware of, and it's a tricky one to hit the sweet spot on.
Yeah, and it's an important issue, and we're going through and have been going through for a couple of years now, testing the relationship with Jake around our systems and how we engage and act with members, about speed of response and about taking up issues and critically following up. There's a lot of members felt that sometimes they have to chase officers to get a follow-up. So it's about ensuring that's being tracked. And what we're also trying to do, and we've been rolling out with the dashboards, a lot more self-service for councillors and being able to track in real time their said issues. That is requiring a lot of back system change. It's the boring bit that no one wants to talk about, but it's actually really important. Getting systems that can talk to each other, getting the data clean so it's not misinformation feeding to local members and therefore feeding to their residents as elected officials. So we're just making sure all that's aligned, clean. We're rolling out pilots. So we've rolled out to cabinet, we'll be rolling out to selected beta test councils beyond the cabinet in due course, and then to the wider council. But that system will hopefully be available to the public in due course as well. A system where people could see in real time what the issues were with the report. That's the aim.
Did I miss that on the action plan? What you just said to me?
There's quite a lot in the action plan, but that is well publicised, that customer service management. So it is in training.
Okay.
If it's not in there, then I'm going to be put in there explicitly.
Just to jump in there. So there's a transformation program of work that is all of that. So it's not in this action plan, it is a project.
Any other questions? No? Any comments? Go on.
Yeah, I just want to say, even the previous, this is a brilliant report. The councils to be applauded for it. I think in this day and age, when you get people talking about transparency, that is a wonderful compliment. When we talk about municipality, talking in terms of people looking for the betterment of Newport as a whole, that is brilliant endorsement. So I think it's as Norman said, for me it was a joy to read the report and to see it because I live here and I can see what's going on. But it was really nice to get that endorsement from peers to do that. I think it's really the whole council. Well done to all of us.
Good job. Anyone else? No? I'll say a few things then. No two. I think, just to reiterate what people said, I think it's a very positive report. And I think what it demonstrates is how well the council noticed that. Because I think you've been open and transparent. You wanted to pose questions to the panel, of which you really already knew the answer, but you wanted that reinforced in regards to where there may well be some areas for improvement. I think that you need to be complimented for that. I think the issue that we just raised about young people have got completely different take on the board that we have. And I think it'd be very, very important that we listen to them. There I said it we used to have a youth council exactly the same, and we invited, as you are into, the relevant cabinet member to the relevant scrutiny committee, so that they could sit in and listen and actually be part of that process. I think engaging with young people nowadays is essential, because you'll miss so much if you don't. The member officer relations, every council's got it. Elected members will always go to the person they'll get a response from. They don't necessarily go to the right person on occasion, so that individual gets inundated. And I think enforcing that and making sure that's appropriate is right and proper, otherwise you won't be able to get on with the day business. And I think feedback, we were having a discussion in a meeting earlier that public get cheesed off when people don't feedback. They may make a complaint and it goes into the big black hole and they get nothing back. And I think to ensure that members of the public actually are valued by raising these issues, you give them some feedback. And I think that's very, very important. And again, you've identified that as a very key issue. There are 3 recommendations, obviously, in the report. We will track them as part of our responsibilities as governance and audit committee. It will be, I think, in Paul's normal report as part of the tracking. And obviously, we can look at that as we go along. But just related, congratulations to Newport. As you said, be shot there. That's it. So. But thank you very much. I think it's a positive report, and I think you, as Don said, the staff and the elected members involved will be congratulated because it is key. It's a team, as is every other thought. Okay, proposals are, I think, basically we note the contents of the report and the recommendations, and the council to propose responses and actions, and obviously we will track them in due course. Someone prepared to move, please. Thank you, Jason. Second, and Don. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. Thank you both for tuning in. I'm very pleased that each of you turned up in the time, because most of the others have now turned up in the time today. You don't normally, so we've raised the standards. But I didn't notice, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5 then, draft annual governance statement.
I'll start with other people so wish. So this is annual governance statements. It comes to the committee every year. Has evolved, I think, significantly over the last 5 years. As a on the back of feedback we've had from committee. So there's significantly changed the structure and the content of it in chart and data. So hopefully the community can see that that's reflected today. Just as way of cop, because it does link into the previous item. The previous action plan, 13 of the action being completed, 6 of the action being rolled forward to this year. We have 25 actions, new actions within the 26, 27 plan. 60 of those relate directly to our responses to the panel assessment. And also doing monitoring through that. So I'm not sure Tracy or Paul about anything else there, but happy to take comments, questions.
So just to remind the committee in terms of the kind of governance statement. So as similar to last year, senior officers, our corporate management team, boards, they reviewed the updates in terms of the principles and are challenging ourselves and self-assessing ourselves in terms of what we've improved, where the challenges are, and what we've implemented in the last year. So all of that is laid out across all of the principles within this report. In addition to this, following governance for the committee, this will go into the statement of accounts, which is another report coming to this committee this evening. So all of this is combined part of that package, which Aaron Steve, if we go through to part of the statement of accounts, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions, Norma?
Thank you, Chair. I have to share so the report. And I just have 2 views. First of all, on page 71, item 6, and bear in mind your constitution, I did question why we need an external consultant. And why is the completion date moved from the 31st of March 26th of March to the 31st of March 29? I just thought this in. And it's I thought funny, but it's been out of my stuff against me. Okay, and the other one, and this one probably been easier than that one. The risk review to be completed by the 31st of December 2027, as of course, about 17 months away. But the answer may be that it's linked to the report of the plan. It is linked to the report of the plan, fine. If it's not, I wonder why it's going to take 17 months to do the risk review. Those are my contributions.
Thank you, Norma. Bruce?
I'll do my best in this first one. And then Paul will answer the second question. Right, the constitution, there is a constitution in place. The current constitution has been adapted and modified fairly significantly over the years as new things have happened as the rules have changed. What that's left us with is a bit of a jigsaw of a constitution. So that's kind of where we are. So there's a constitution in place. It is lawful, and we're very clear about that. It is not the easiest thing to navigate with the government because of the way it operates. We've done some work through Democratic Services Committee previously on this to try and look at it in bite-sized chunks, and that has progressed a little bit, but not very far. We've then therefore taken the decision. There's 2 options here. We can either because it is a significant piece of work, I just want to be really clear about it. Rewriting this, the model constitution in place, but writing all those elements in relation to the board and getting that through the appropriate democratic process in order to be approved is a significant piece of work. We had hoped to get that done before the election. That isn't going to happen now. the decision to bring something external to do is purely an internal resourcing one. I either allocate the monitoring officer this piece of work and it essentially takes most of his time, probably for the next 18 months, or we bring somebody external in. So in consultation, I've got the chair of Democratic Services Committee in place, because we've spoken to Ray about it, and also the council. That's an internal decision in order to just get some progress in this. I'm hopeful we'll get it done before that time scale, but I can't fix it that because we need to commission the piece of work in the first instance.
Second question. Second question.
So in response to the second question, so you are right, it's being done at the same time as us preparing the plan. This acknowledges also the democratic process that we have to go through as a part of that process as well, because obviously we have to bring in policy that relates to the risk management policy. This has to be spoken to the audit committee, but also we're doing this in line with the development of the new corporate plan, so that the two speak to each other in effect. So one supports the other.
No,
Actually, convinced on the constitution is true. We have not the constitution, every authority wears the constitution. And my guess is, although they'd be adapted for, certain authorities in terms that they might work a bit differently, I would have thought very much the same in each authority, that we've each got the same legal responsibilities. And I mean, we have a familiar with the constitution as you are, Chair. You should think, 3 minutes. And do we really need that to run? Because I can't see that much. I can see a chunk of work, but I cannot see an extensive chunk of work. Constitution. It's in place. It's pretty. I can see that it changed the negative environment, it changed the negative section, but officers should be aware of that. Sorry, I'm being a bit challenging on this because it actually worried me when I read that.
Bruce, you're not the expert in the field here, and obviously you'll be guided by the monitoring officer and others. Can I suggest that we get Mark just to do a short period of the survey to members? I can agree that normally it shouldn't take 3 years, 2.5 years. It shouldn't, because there is a model constitution which you have to follow in reality. And I'm saying all of the it's a big piece of work that people be tweaking that to ensure that it addresses the way the board operates within the executive functions, etc. And that's not a 2-minute job. It will take some time. 3 years, I think, is a bit excessive. I think the other issue, which is quite rightly say, you've got an election in between. So what the administration thinks of it now, what wants to tweak it, you could say, we did the same when I was previously. We set a working group, people went through each section of the constitution, and worked through it. And then all of a sudden, you've got a new administration possibly coming in, and then want to do something else. They may not agree with scheme of delegations or whatever else they agree. But I would have thought sort of 9 months, a year like this, would be okay. So I think, sort of 2020, well, 2028 as an indicator would be better. But I'm not an expert. I don't know what it is nowadays. And I'd rather you get some advice from one to say, this is what it's going to entail.
That's absolutely fine, because all of those conversations happen together. And hence the organisation.
I can agree with that. I think 2020 months a long bit to get, but again, you can get that great experience. Anything else, anyone? Any comments? Tom?
Yeah, I just want to repeat again what you said. It's a good report, and to see how it's changed over the years, it's really very pleasing. And also the use of the images, which people understand pictures rather than understanding words. To actually see the pictures is helpful for everyone's looking at.
Can I just make one comment if you don't know this? Just wondering on the 51 officer structure, is there any reason you've got the names of individuals holding the posts? Normally, you wouldn't put names in anyway. But I'm just wondering why they.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a really good start to notice. I think we use the diagram use necessarily.
No, that's okay, because again, I'm not saying there are people out there who may not know who these individuals are, but if you've got a name, then obviously there can be a track in that. I don't know whether it's GDPR, I'm not sure, but all I'm thinking is about the welfare of these individuals.
That's fine, that we can take that, and we'll just be really clear with, that is all in the public domain.
Oh, that's okay.
That's actually what I'm.
Yeah. Because obviously people change and all of a sudden you've got to do a new diagram. It's easy just to have the titles. So, thank you, Tracy.
That's the issue. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Any other comments? No, the recommendation then is, I think, obviously noted some points on the governance statement prior to approval and publication. So if those issues can just be clarified in regards to event type of constitution, take out the names. So I'm prepared to move, please. Thank you. I'll second that. Thank you. Anyone against? No, the right side is 6 Audit Wales and regulatory body 6 month update.
Oh, yeah, the sub, Tracy. So yeah, so for the committee's benefit, this is us the regulatory updates. So this covers off the regulatory work that's been completed by Audit Wales, Care Inspector of Wales, and Asesiad, and our main regulated within the City Council. So this covers the period between January and June 2026. So I'm just going to give a summary in terms of the main contents of the report. My colleague from Audit Wales, Drafft, is here today also just to provide a bit of an overview in terms of the report from Audit Wales, and then we'll hand over to the committee with any questions which they may have. So in relation to this report, we had 2 reports released from Audit Wales, local reports on our recruitment and retention and our housing adaptations. And no local reports from the Care Inspector of Wales. In terms of the recommendations raised, we've got a table in the report which provides a summary of the progress against recommendation from which we did last time. And then in addition to that, we have the information around school inspections and special schedule homes and schools. So I'll hand over to Stefan just to provide some details of some of the other.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Chair, for having me here today. So, as Paul said, there are 2 pieces of work from Audit Wales on the report. The first one is around recruitment and retention challenges. So, in this audit, we looked at the recruitment and retention challenges the council is facing, which included how well the council understands its challenges and what it's doing in response, including how it views value for money of its approaches. The main audit question was, does the council have proper arrangements to address its recruitment and retention challenges? It's really important to note here, this was a thematic review across Wales. The reports for the other councils which have already been published can be found on our website if you're interested. And there will be a national themes item coming out of this piece of work, which I will ensure you get a copy of as soon as it's published. So we found that the council has a good understanding of its recruitment and retention challenges and is proactive in using a range of approaches to address them. The council uses its recruitment and retention activity and implements improvements, and it is also developing arrangements to improve its ability to assess value for money. I think it's fair to say this was a really positive audit report, and we'd really like to thank the council for engaging with us. We only made 1 recommendation in this audit, You see in the report that at the time of the audit, the council was refining its arrangements to assess value for money. And the recommendation was that once implemented, the council should evaluate its arrangements to ensure they enable it to assess and monitor its recruitment and retention activity, and that it's efficient, economic and effective. I'm happy to hand over to the officers now and take any questions or move on to the next report.
Any questions? No?
Thank you very much. So if I move on to the next one then, which is housing adaptations, again, this is included in your pack as are the recommendations and the management responses. So this is a regional review which was undertaken across 10 councils. We looked at how the council provides housing adaptations for children, young people and adults living in their own homes and in private rented homes. We reviewed the council's approach, delivery and monitoring arrangements. So overall, we found that the council's a responsive housing adaptation service. There's strong operational arrangements, clear public information and good partnership working between teams. However, whilst the wait times have improved over recent years, they do remain significant and the council is not using its housing adaptations data to inform its resource planning, and reporting focuses on outputs rather than impacts and value for money. Again, I'd like to thank the team who worked with us in this audit, particularly Dale Shields, who was really helpful coordinating all of the work, documents and interviews for us. So this audit produced 2 recommendations. One was around a clear understanding and analysis of future demand and service capacity over the medium to long term, which included a workforce plan for the housing adaptations pathways, which is underpinned by data, including that of occupational therapy demand, and developing the resource requirements needed to meet that future demand. The second recommendation was to ensure that reporting demonstrates impact and value for money of housing adaptations, including how the service contributes to the prevention agenda across the local authority. Again, I'm happy to take any questions and the management response form is in your pack.
Any questions on that? Okay, easy. Any questions on the report generally? No.
Are we taking all the reports now? Okay.
All of item 6.
Okay. On page 38. Starting the training. It's got in terms of how it's gone from 64% to 86%. Then there's 30 and 51%. I was just wondering what the acceptable realistic target was for it, because it doesn't seem to be at the target.
Talking about the violence against women again issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
recommend some of the recommendations just looking to see what's acceptable, what's the target.
well, I don't know, but we can take that back to the Director of Social Services and ask to provide a response to that extension.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. So there's a corporate safeguarding and receives that recommendation. So I suggest perhaps we would go that in for them to consider.
Yeah, I just think for us as a committee, you know, because we could go all our keep it 100%, we need what's good.
Yeah, can I just say, obviously we've got the out of the tracker the issue about violence against women and that training which we've identified. I think this just polarises what we were told previously. You know, certainly when you've got group 1 or group 6 training, and again said about with the leader, because when we spoke to the leader, we're taking a full 8 hours training over the day to do the piece of level 6 is the enormous time for a regular member, you know, to do the there. So whether it could be compartmentalised into bite-sized bits. Because again, I think these figures came up before, don't have 30 to 51 members. have also done training, and that means training have not. So that's again, there's where the issues come in regards to that and same staff. So I think we may go around in circles on this one, but it does need to be addressed, and certainly it needs to be addressed for the next administration, because you know, and again, that's where we go down the terminology with that, is it mandatory or is it mandatory? So if that could be Dom, did you have something else? Okay, no, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Page 89 on planning governance. This had an original issue date of December 24. And it's now 31st of March 28. That's 4 years, not 4 years, but 3 years, 3 with 9 months. The reason for holding up the improvement of the planning process refers to the review of the Constitution. And from what I know, I thought that doesn't sound right to me, because if the planning process needs to be improved, it needs to be improved now, and should be held up because of the Constitution. I mean, I like the Constitution, very parts to it, but you can't just hold that for the planning process of the Constitution. I mean, recognise. So that's my one, and then on page 98, I discussed the progress on the development of the youth work strategy, and it said exactly to be approved in August, and then the completion date of 31st of March 2010, that's like it's approved in August, so I could go dated 2010. And going back, I'm sorry, gone back on this time, but on the scrutiny arrangements, I struggled to see what the sound description, but put that aside. Again, we've got a date completion of 28. It says to find completion. The issues are too important. Really,
Paul, do you want to try and deal with that?
So I'll take the scrutiny one and the plan one, because we've already talked about some of the Constitution in an earlier item. So rather than go through old ground again, what we'll do, we'll have a look at some of those dates as part of the wider report that will come back to the community in relation to the Constitution, and make sure that all the dates are aligned and that there's consistency across all of them. Okay. In relation to the other recommendation, which I think was around the youth strategy. Yeah. I'll take that back to the relevant team just to make sure that it's okay. I do know that the head of prevention and inclusion is here today, which might be able to provide some insight if necessary, but we can look at that.
How long did you pick that up?
Sorry, Chair, could you repeat the question?
Repeat the question.
Right, okay. The paper tells us that the youth work strategy is actually to be approved in August, but we've actually got a completion date of the 31st of March 2010. So we're talking of August 26. That's, so why do we wait 6 months for completion?
I think on this one, I'm going to bring in Dale Shields, if that's okay. He's closer to some of these details. So Dale, would you like to come in and answer that question, please?
Hi all. Sorry, it's quite quiet over Teams. Sorry, could you repeat it again, please?
Yeah, go closer to the mic and shout.
Sorry.
Okay. Page 98 of our pack. There's good progress being made on development of the new grid strategy, and it states that it's likely to be approved in August. So I would have thought if it's to be approved in August, it'd be a completion date of 31st of August, or at least 30th of September. So why have we given a completion date of the 31st of March 2027?
I haven't got that data in front of me at the moment in terms of those completion dates. I can see what you are saying there, so I would have to come back to you on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay, we'll get that. That's okay, no problem. We don't want to try to deal with something which you're not fully aware of. So if you get that back to Norma, or as you said, we get that back to the directors.
Yes.
Thank you both. Any, Jason, sorry.
Thanks. It was just, I got on with Wales, it was information for that additional learning needs. The Audit Wales has raised 6 recommendations to Welsh Government. Would it be on the 6 recommendations or if it's supposed to public to be, if people would like to know what recommendations will be?
I can pick that up, Chair. Yeah, so the additional learning needs audit, yeah, it's actually published on our website, and all of the recommendations for Welsh Government will be included in there. I'm happy to share a link into the chat if that's helpful. I'll do it now.
Any other questions? No? Caroline, you still got your hand up if you wish to take it down.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just in relation to the question about the youth service, the youth strategy, just to say that was a youth service strategy. It needs to be submitted in September 26, but it will be out and published in 2027. So just to clarify those dates.
Okay, that's it. We get that clarified. Obviously, it's got to go through a consultation or engagement or something like that. That would be correct. Okay, thank you, Caroline. Any other questions? Any comments? I've got a quick. It's picking up this constitution issue, and I think, as you said, what we need to square is circles. I'm with Norma on the planning issues. If there's an issue about the planning protocol now, then it needs to be addressed now. It can be fed into the constitution, but the matter needs to be addressed. And I say that because another council that I belong to had exactly the same recommendation, which is the Vale of Morgan, and they worked on a new protocol and it's been adopted by council and government. I think sometimes some of these things need to be compartmentalised, dealt with, inserted into the old constitution, then. Because obviously the new elected representatives in May need to deal with it, so that's the first thing. And it's the same with scrutiny arrangements. I think scrutiny arrangements need to be dealt with, and then obviously can be incorporated in the new constitution. So I think the suggestion of Paul saying if you can get all these issues picked out as to when they're going to be done on the timeline, and obviously they can all feed into the new constitution, which will come out at the end of the machine whenever it comes to it.
Yes, that's fine. Just that. So that I got a meeting with them heavily signed to the back on the exhaust this week. So we'll talk those things through. I think we'll pick up just said before, we'll pick up the scrutiny matter because I don't think that is linked to the constitution. I think that's an error in the report. Oh. Okay, so we'll pick that one because I don't see on that. Yeah, that's kind of
yeah, that's right. I think. Picking up Norma's on is that, and I think we've had it in some of the recommendations before, we've had a long stop date, is let's see the action plan as to what's happening to get to that. So what's taking place, and I think that may be useful for committee to assure itself that what's going to be done is done within a timely manner. So, okay. Any other comments? No, okay, so we've got the recommendations that, obviously, I've got a comment, sorry, that question for Audit Wales, Wales Audit. There's a theme throughout lots of your reports now coming through about value for money. Not only is it in regards to the issues you've raised, but obviously the value for money reports in regards to commissioning. You've done a value for money issue in regards to temporary accommodation. So obviously it's a theme, I think, that local authorities need to pick up. That when you come in to do some inspections, you may well be, whether it's on your checklist, a value for money scenario. I'm just wondering, is that correct?
It is. It's part of the legislation which underpins the work that we do around economy, efficiency and effectiveness. So you see a lot of value for money angles and aspects in all of our audits, included in financial audits. And I don't think you're alone in the value for money recommendation that you're getting, but we're trying to make it really explicit and a big part of what we do. But you know, have to chat with the if you want to.
No, that's okay. So that was, even though it's statutory, it's interesting that it's being picked up as recommendations. Sorry, at least I should write these things down. Okay, so that we, so it's just certainly no comments of the report and regulatory activity completed, and the relevant reports will come back to us in regards to the administration, of course. Okay. So move please. Thank you. For second that. Thank you. Against? No, thank you. Item 7 is the statement of accounts for 24-25. Ariannol or Laura?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Laura will take you through the detail. I will discuss the quantification issue if we need to, and make sure we're all understanding problematic reasoning for so long. That's supposed to be the underlying issue. And then over the value that's been everything's okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need a long discussion or point on this, Laura, because we've had this in draft format. We discussed it previously. Obviously, we've now got it before us to be signed off. It is a qualified set of accounts, which we've been discussing for months. That we would like to got sooner, but obviously we're trying to work through it with relevant parties. But over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, we're finally able to present the final 24-25 statement of accounts to the committee. Audit Wales have conducted their audit and issued their audit of accounts report, which should be read alongside the statement of accounts. This report summarises the key changes made to the accounts since they were initially published at the beginning of July 25, as well as the council's responses to any issues raised. And as we've just said, Audit Wales will be issuing a qualified opinion. This is due to the fact that the work is still ongoing. We've got transport audits, and therefore the audit has not yet been concluded. Due to the nature of this outstanding work, the decision was made to issue a qualified audit opinion, and this was considered to be a pragmatic solution in order to allow the audit for the 25-26 accounts to begin. It's important to note that this opinion is in relation to the specific issue within the report group accounts, and in every other material aspects, the accounts give a true and fair view of the financial position of the council. There was one raw material incorrect in the statement of 529k that was identified, which wasn't amended because it wasn't considered material, alongside some improvement areas that needed to be done around processes and particularly around audit evidence and timeliness. The context for that is that the 24-25 accounts were prepared during a particularly challenging period. We had the implementation of the council's new financial system. It was the first time adoption of the police accounting standard, IFRS 16, and we did have some significant staffing pressure within the technical accounting team as well. Again, it's important to say that despite these challenges, the number of corrected audit statements are actually lower than the previous years. Additional resources have now been added to the team, and Audit Wales have undertaken a lessons learned with officers, and officers have already implemented a number of improvements which should hopefully be seen in the audit for this year. So the committee has asked the statement of accounts report to authorise the chair and the head of finance to sign the accounts. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, Audit Wales, any comments, questions?
Well, say, Chair, I'm guessing that will also. I think the audit report in front of us today that tries to summarise those issues. I think those 2 points on the timing of this, if we're going to say where we could all want to be. October 25 was the deadline. I think it's fair to say that single entity legal counsel part of that process was there over last year. There's the entity element of the audits around that, which probably caused this. I think we've done a fair shot of trying to overland them qualified years, but given the impact it could have on 5-6, which is the next cycle,
and that the courts will have qualified on a technical basis that we've got certainty over balance still. Probably we have to the 5-6 down alongside other councils and we just depend on together because you would be there. There's a couple of things in the quarter I wasn't going well on the clause touched on the statements, the unexpected statements, and the key for us and the recommendations will be in action. We're currently in the middle of the 5-6 process. We're not identifying those concerns at the moment. That's what that's still the same as early on in that process. It's nice to see that the recommendations and I think the work the two teams have done over the last 6 months to get to this place, but also prepared by thanks to my the thanks to my Laura, our being teams. It's been strained relationships, hasn't. It's been quite a constructive process to get to this place. And with a good way by the end of September, self-managed thought stuff and all the work will be done in the 5-6 audits. The NTL issue, we work through with the council at the moment, and hopefully by the end of September we'll be in a position to bring back to this committee that close out the 5-6 around quite quickly as well. I'll take any questions and I'll report out.
Thank you both for that. And good questions, Mr. Norma.
Thank you, Chair, and I do recognise how challenging it has been to start and preparing some statements to pass. And it's good to hear that some improvements have been made, although we recognise that still further improvements to be made. But when I do try to read this council, I'm not a financial person, but as reading, I'm really concerned about Mewnol Trump. And I actually went on this house. I didn't understand the governance of it. Bear in mind, it's a standalone company, but we've got councillors on the board, what I understand. That's fine. I'm still trying to look at the governance of it. And I noticed some directors and companies councillors been on the board quite some time, and I presume they must be executive directors. And I was just thinking, have we got people of the right skills and cover on that split to govern this organisation? Because the last house that I read, Company's House, showed a profit in excess of 644,000. And what really happened here? It really concerning me.
I think that may be a comment, really. Obviously, it's a real issue for this year's accounts, 25-26. So can we keep?
Yeah, I still don't understand the chair. What's
Reasonable.
councillors on the board? So I don't actually understand the governance and the relationship with the council. I'm struggling with that.
It's not relevant to the, it's not here to scrutinise the governance or the committee role over Newport Transport. The governance is pretty simple. There's one shareholder for the member of the values and inputs in the council. It's a standing company, sort of like, but they approve peers for the council. Very much as in the future, custom companies are probably still to the company holding the product.
Any other questions? No. Oh, sorry, Norman, you got any follow-up?
Only one minor really. I couldn't actually work out the actual figure of reserves because I picked up 3 different figures. So it's minor to let me know exactly what the reserves are.
We'll get back to you.
Get back to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've got reading through it, and I know counter when we're traveling. I picked up 2 different figures, 469, 470, 139.
We will wax you and explain.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Because you'll pick them up in the next start statement accounts 25-26 anyway, won't you?
You'll probably have the same comments, and we will write back to you on those.
Exactly, there we are. Thank you, Maria. Don.
Yeah, it's more of a comment that would have been a question lower up. So that I think, which I knew you was going to ask, but I think you guys will have to tell up have to do with to do that. And I think when we've got something that is a good sign of control, that's the way in the one thing I would say, instead of saying that's really encouraging for me, is that when you have your hands up, so yeah, that's not right, and we'll change it and see that. And I think that goes really well because that's a real culture. That's and the fact that the relationship is not strained and it's is a really good sign. But first and foremost, in some ways, I want to extend my sympathy because in my language, good fellows, you'll be screwed by something that's got nothing to do with you. In some respects, so thank you, and I'm glad you put this together so that you can get on the 25, 26 because not doing that just makes 25, 26 even more.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Well, I just like to reiterate that. I think for both teams, from Audit Wales and our own council team, our thanks really to get us to where we are now. It wasn't from the willingness of this committee to get them signed off earlier and qualified, because we saw, I think, and understood the amount of work that would be necessary. But obviously, Byron and the team persuaded us to carry on negotiating and trying to sort it out. Very unfortunately, to no avail, and that wasn't without being recognised. But again, I think everyone working together to deliver these should be complimented. And the same again, Laura, if there are lessons to be learned, as we normally do, as lessons learned before, learn from it and make it stronger next time. So in there, thanks to your colleagues, governors and LT, just say that. Okay, if there's no other comments, the recommendations are, I think that we note comments of the 24-25 accounts, we note comments to audit bills, audit accounts report, and that we prove that the 24-25 statement accounts are authorised to be signed by the chair and the head of finance. So on the amendment, please. Thank you. That's seconded. Thank you very much. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Item 8 is now the audit and financial statements report, 24-25. Yeah. Item 8.
I think we've done that. I think we just got that shared by the section regarding our report.
Okay, sorry. Right, yeah. Sorry, that's your report. My apologies. My apologies. Norma, sorry. I'll item 8. Oh, there we are. Go on. Go on, Norma.
I noticed again that in terms of providing audit way the time because quality working it's not day. And I know you're not the only authority that has that problem, but I want assurance that that's not going to happen again, as concerning when it happens in that second time around. And I was a bit concerned about the errors identified for culture debtors. I think sometimes a lot. And again, actually in place to ensure that it's without again or some mistake. And my last point was why wasn't information provided by again for transport? I wasn't clear in the paper. Why wasn't information provided? That was in the paper.
Yeah.
I can answer all of those. So, for your first point, yes, we do acknowledge that last year, I think about 90% of the working papers were not given at the start of the audit. This year, they've all been given. So 100% of those were actually uploaded onto Info, which is the audit software. And from conversations that I've had with the team today, it looks like a lot of the audit queries that have been ticking along, and a lot of things being within, and also they seem quite happy with the response has been timeliness of the impact. So that's a definite improvement from last year. All of the legal improvements were available to auditors and at the back at the start of the audit. In terms of the second one, it's about the debtors, that's purely a technical adjustment. There was a slight discrepancy, well, there's slight different viewpoints, I would say, between myself and Wales. That particular data had been on the accounts at that value for a number of years. There was a very slight change due to the IFRS 16 and how we should be showing that. But it's more technical in nature rather than an actual standing. And in terms of your quick three, one of the reasons that wasn't corroborated is because that was specifically due to the leasing information. So Newport Transport are not required to actually prepare their accounts into the IFRS 16 arrangement, whereas when we consolidate their account for the IFRS, we have to change the audits. We have to adopt those audit standards. We should have corroborated that. It shouldn't be an issue this year because there are other issues ongoing. And I think from January 26th, I think we will have to adopt the IFRS 16 anyway. So this shouldn't be an issue going forward either.
I just wanted to chair.
We're going to comment now. Yeah, I support the wrong said all 3 points that I think really points to the important. I'm not going to quality most of the something well. I think there's a second look at them. It's been spread again. Accounts delivered on 30th of June. The Audit General will out to the Chief Justice and media role or the sector starting this year. Set up that committee requirement. Achieve that. That's why we must be then trying to run the work there September at the body's hand. I think 15 of the 22 council at the committee one time. But there's still a problem across the sector. I think that we'll be doing the opportunity is getting in with the policy. I think this committee will probably take 5-6 people 4 or 5 and start into this the work off with the teams by the end of September. We conversation as to how quickly we can then prove and sign the accounts out. I think that's really important when we put that elsewhere and at the centre the report is again hard and hard to do. And I think that for the quality we get in the like non-available tenants and process space, and I just want to be in that space. So the more we can do through processes, our session, the learning session with people, and it's not just the law and the financing, but the business part of it as well. And if that process is probably helped us get to where we are now. We've still got 3 weeks to go, but at the moment it's a positive sign. So yeah, I think it's not that kind of knowledge.
Thank you for that. All I hope is that you don't bring the timescale time back to the 31st of May for delivering accounts in the future. I think that is a timescale, isn't it? It's a Welsh Government's aspiration.
I think that's still the starting deadline on the end of May and end of July. So we're right at the moment based on the back of COVID. I think we will stay in September as an organisation. Most of the sector as well, but there's a conversation on the project government. And I think see problems across the board in England as well. And there's going to be a realistic process to this flood and the work involved.
Yeah. I think the Welsh Government understands the work that goes into these accounts. Bringing a piece of legislation, we don't know what the impact's going to be. As it was a separate agenda item, I apologise. Can I just say we note this report because it should be incorporated. That's all. That's on move, please. Seconded. Thank you. One goes to item 9 then is the draft statement of dates for 25-26. Laura.
Thank you, Chair. That's me again. So the report presents the council's draft statement of accounts for 25-26. The accounts being completed and authorised certification by the head of finance and submitted to Audit Wales, and as we've already said, the audit again. So the accounts include both the council single entity accounts and the group accounts. The single entity accounts include the corporate joint committee, and our group account includes Newport Transport and for the first time Cousin Cymru. Although only 3 months of activity has been included due to the time of the first accounting period. The committee should note that for the purposes of preparing the accounts, the latest available draft figures for Newport transport will be used. So within the 25-26 account, we use the draft 24-25 accounts for Newport transport. That's because they went over the deadline due to the reasons that we've already mentioned. There are no significant new accounting standards during that affect the 25-26 accounts. However, Cyfrifon has introduced additional guidance in relation to property valuations to provide greater clarity on how council should ensure asset valuations remain up to date with market indices are not available. So looking ahead, Audit Wales will continue to undertake its audit over the coming months. The draft account will also be placed on public inspection during August, and committee members are asked to review the accounts and to submit any questions or observations to us by the end of August if possible. This helps improve scrutiny, allows detailed responses and to be prepared in advance, and provides an additional layer of quality assurance before the final accounts then comes to the committee. The committee is just asked to note the draft 25-26 accounts.
Thank you, Laura. Again, tremendous amount of work it's gone into this. You juggling the ones we just dealt with and the at the same time, same colleagues in not always. So just say thank you to you for getting to where we're at. So obviously, there's a bit of a journey to go yet, but at least we're in on time, which is the main thing. Any questions?
Question for you, Chair.
Oh, right.
Should we do questions in this, or should we be sending anything, or should we be sending an email through to Laura and doing that?
Yeah, I think obviously I expect that everyone's read the report and drafted the draft statement of accounts. I think it would be worthwhile to set the questions out and send them directly to Marianne and Laura to have them on record, really, because it's spent an enormous amount of time going through if we and the same principles that what just said, if just sending in writing, some of the more points as well previously about reserves and such like, and those issues can be raised and Laura and finding the team to take them. Yeah, make sure they're done by the end of August. I think that's the date, isn't it? Yeah. I read.
Just to say, Chair, we had a conversation this afternoon. The committee meeting in September is probably a little early to bring the final audited accounts to you. The audit is normally ongoing into September, and there's a lot of work there. So we'll probably be asking for a special meeting in October.
We have that date set, yeah.
All right, so that's the
I think you've raised attention, but we'll be in a better position in September to know exactly where we are. But I would imagine that a meeting in October would be possible. To be early morning of that.
Just to say, in September, October, I'm on holiday, so my illustrious vice chairman will most probably have to deal with it in my absence, and obviously a bit better chair than I am, as I keep saying on the
Could we make it late?
Okay, thank you, Myron. Anything else, Norma?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that it's very pleasing to know that collection of council tax debt is improved.
Anyone else? No? Okay, go to the recommendation then, note the draft 25-26 statement of accounts. Someone move, please. Thank you. Second that, thank you. Colleagues from Audit Wales or you can go if you wish. Next one is the internal audit progress report, July 26th to 27th. Amy?
Apologies if maybe the screen will look on off. We'll have a quick look now. It shouldn't affect the recording, but we'll try and get to it.
Hey.
Thanks, Jim, and evening, secretary.
So we have got the first progress report for 26-27. It's confusing to about 26-27. The completed voting opinion is currently reasonable, indicating that government's risk management controlling arrangements are generally sound, although some areas for improvement have been identified. I suppose it's just important to note that that is sort of a provisional indicated voting opinion. We've currently got 26-27 engagements. We've got draft field works, so we're not finalised everything yet. We've got overdue actions and several higher risk areas currently in progress. So just to confirm to the committee that each quarter that voting opinion change. Key sort of headlines and information to bring to your attention. There was no high organisational risks in this area, no limited assurances or no assurances for 26-27. We've got one engagement at draft report stage and 13 in progress, and we've got 74 audit actions currently being tracked. 20 overdue, which is an improvement from May. So the first two in May, so we plan to close 12 of that, so showing that positive factor to close the rules off. In terms of the rolling audit plan, so sort of going forward, those future proposed audits, committee provided feedback from the previous meeting that we'd like more understanding of why those engagements are in the plan and why their priority is there. I've started that piece of work, and that will be developed through the year now, making sure that you've got a really good reasoning and understanding of what priorities about that plan. We've continued to map the internal audit plan to the Council's corporate risk register, and areas with no coverage will form part of future plan meetings, and where there is no coverage, a reason that will be provided. In terms of performance, currently we've got a target of mapping to 85% corporate risks. That is currently at 69, so we'd like to see that increase during the year. Just quickly tracking back to action tracking, as I said, so 20 actions overdue, all of those being escalated to heads of service and directors, and we've got 13 actions with approved extensions to their deadline. Those are the same 13 from May. So what that tells you is no further action of the plan extended time scale, they are the same ones. Bringing to committee's attention that 5 of those 13 have exceeded that deadline, and likewise they have been escalated to service directors. I should also note that for some of those actions, and I probably need to come back to you with the exact number, as it stands today, perhaps not right in my report, I have got the evidence and the team are looking through it. Just to give you some, we are getting some information back. You also notice in the report, because I know this is featured in quite a lot of our discussions, I've given you a time frame of when actions for limited or no assurances report will come back to you in detail. So I know there's been some discussions about when that will come back and when you might possibly like to do a polling. So if I give you a timescale, and that's based on their target implementation dates. So for example, target implementation dates, so the will ship December-ish, so I'm expecting to come back to you in January. So I thought that would help you track what you're expecting to see. Customer satisfaction. So of the 7 questions we turned out of 25, we had 100% positive feedback. We are still working with officers to get that engagement and get those surveys completed. I met with the committee outside of the meeting earlier today, and he said about escalating that to heads of service and directors as well. So perhaps when they're not getting a response to a feedback survey, just having a nudge so that we can get that feedback. That feedback's really detrimental to our service and how we can add most value to the organisation. County board updates. We have supported the council in reviewing and reflecting their board risk assessment. We are working with the council to embed the fraud risks into the corporate risk management process. The county board team is developing an for the bribery and corruption training module. We rolled out to staff. There's no new investigations currently in progress, although we are providing support on previous investigation processes. The council's insurance is still ongoing, and the next event is your first annual fraud report. So that's sort of good progress in that area. And then finally, just to finish off, I just wanted to sort of take you back to last year, 25-26. The last page of my report It's just giving you that little bit of a progress update on audits that were not finalised for the annual opinion. So the Housing Multiple Occupation Follow-up report, that's now finalised and action tracking work is commenced. Housing advice and prevention, since I wrote your report, has been finalised, so you'll see that in September, next time I'm reporting to you. And we're currently working with officers to review the actions for the housing benefit tax reduction. As those audits are finalised, even though we're in the 26-27 year, I'll still be bringing those to your attention. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Norma?
It's not a question, the chair, but I am concerned, you know, about 20 actions that I do, switching target dates and same thing. You know, it's not like priority being things like that. I'm sure that, and I understand that it's been estimated, but doing nothing.
I'm asking to all two, I've got two months. Amy might want to be in this as well. So I suspect there's a story behind each of those. I 100% agree with you. So the previous conversation with what has been, I want those of my directorate management team. I will have a conversation directly with their service and service management responsible for them as needed. I have the list of things from my directorate that was dealt with my head of service. So that's it. That's how I ideally, what we'd like to do, so there's a series of dashboards from SWAN. We, on a monthly basis at the directorate level, we have dashboards on performance, on finance, HR monitors, comments, compliments and complaints, project and program development. And I'd like this to be part of standing action against all of this and we know it. So that's what we're trying to do. But I don't agree. There shouldn't be any obstacle.
Any other questions, Tom?
Yeah, it's a question and a concern. I'm always quite cynical of numbers, since my birth really. And where we've got all these actions that we do, I don't know how important they are. I don't know what they relate to, whether it's a key issue or whether it's what I might consider to be a minor issue. So my question is whether we can have something that sort of tells us whether, if one of these actions is overdue as something because no one's feeding through something which is a statutory requirement, well, that's like a red flag. Whereas someone else, they just might be delaying doing it. And whilst that's annoying, the director can sort it out. It might not be a key thing. So just be a bit more information so we know have a little bit more details to what we're actually dealing with. Thanks.
Yeah, I've got some more visuals in the dashboard I can share that could share by priority. So I'll want to use some tools that will give you an idea of the importance, and I can do by directorate as well. So I will include some more visuals. Perhaps I can show you outside of committee if you're happy with popping to the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it would be short from what Don said, obviously. What the high level, what the medium level, what the low levels are, and what actually they would be meant to be doing. And would be useful, that dashboards obviously, but if there's some narrative to say, oh, they haven't done this, or you've recommended this, and haven't. I think that hopefully would address some of those issues. Any other questions? I'll just pick up on page 431, which is you've got the in progress audits and it starts with civil contingencies and ends with journals. Obviously, there's a legacy list there, which from last year's audits and if we started from say 1st of April this year, on this table there are only 9 audits that have been carried out in Buddiant as well. So there are only 9. And if you actually multiply that by 4, in that quarter, that means only 36 audits will be undertaken. I think we just need some assurance that, apart from the legacy ones, which are still outstanding, the target for this year would also be met, whether that's 80% or whether will that be done? Because hopefully there will be a ramp up then from this report into the next quarter or two, and then after quarter three. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I totally take on board what you're saying. I think what I'd like to show the committee, I think I mentioned in our previous earlier, is the rolling plans is always 12 to 18 months work, so you've never got a dwindlingness of completion. But what that makes it difficult for the committee to understand is having achieved the work we set out to. So somewhere in the report, I'll be indicating which one we're aiming to achieve in 2027, which are future. I suppose the only factor to take into consideration here is sometimes when I scope an audit with a head of service, we don't always understand how small, big, intricate that be, whether there'll be data analysis. So there may be some creep because an audit's being bigger, likewise an audit's being smaller, but we can certainly give you some ballpark so we've got something to work to. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's going an issue for mine and this team to say, look, if you're expecting 80 audits to be done this financial year, and currently you're only doing 36, and you know, what discussion has been ongoing there, because obviously there needs to be some discussion. If the expectation is 80 and you're saying you can't do that, you can do that, has that been agreed and happy and prioritised, etc. So hopefully that belongs ongoing. Thanks. Anything else? Any questions? Tom?
Oh, sorry.
Comment, is it John?
Yeah, just a comment. It was something which again, just think would be helpful to, if we as a community had better definition of what's assurance, what's advisory, what's advice, because so that we're clear, and we do with definitions.
Yeah, happy to see that on board.
Thank you for that. Anything else, anyone? No? Okay, we got the recommendation that the internal audit activity report be noted. So, please. Thank you. I'll second that. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Item 11 is the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption annual report. This should be again.
Okay. So this is the council's first annual anti-fraud, bribery and corruption report. It provides the committee assurance on the effectiveness of the council's anti-fraud arrangements during 25-26 and demonstrates the progress made in strengthening the council's approach to fraud and the progress made since the Audit Wales counter-fraud arrangements review in 2023. I think the report demonstrates that the council continues to demonstrate clear commitment to a zero tolerance approach to fraud, bribery and corruption. And significant progress has been made during the year to develop a more mature fraud framework, supported by the SWOT partnership, enhancing governance arrangements, proactive fraud work, and improved reporting to yourselves in this committee. So we're just going to go over some of the key achievements really. We've got a revised and refreshed anti-fraud, bribery and corruption policy. The council are working towards embedding a fraud risk assessment into the council's broader risk management framework. We've made some, the council's made some significant progress in response to the Audit Wales actions to put access to a dedicated counter-fraud expertise through the Scotland partnership, enhanced fraud reporting to the Governance and Audit Committee, delivery of proactive fraud audits and further proactive fraud audits planned, and the development of fraud awareness training delivered to the committee members, and also obviously the development of that for officers. The report outlines the investigative work carried out by SWOT this year, and also I think it's important to note that off the back of those investigations there is audit work planned that will give assurance to the committee that the control frameworks have been improved and are now operating to mitigate that risk of fraud. And then finally, the report outlines the extensive actions and outcomes relating to fraud across the key fraud risk areas in the council, arrest events and all the other areas. I guess finally, I'd like to draw the committee's attention to the areas for continued development. So we've got completing that integration of the fraud risks, the rollout of anti-fraud training, and continuing the work for the proactive fraud audits. Thank
you. Any questions? Ray?
Yeah, thanks to be able to. Could you comment to
how forward are they getting more sophisticated? Or just a simple
Wish I had my four colleagues here as an offer, but I will have a go. No, I think those committees and board are becoming more sophisticated, and the more controls that an organisation puts in place, their main job is to permeate the risk net. So when you think you've got a control, they're going to keep coming, and I think that is why fraud needs to be on the forefront. Those fraud risks need to be managed. Having said that, you still do see the simple back mandate frauds. You know, what I say is simple. You know, the just bringing an organisation and changing the bank details. So I think it's a mixture of both. You still see the simple things, but technology, AI, you know, it's you've got to be on the forefront there. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments? Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to draw on page 449, the image that's there. I'm not a great fan of reverse out anyways, but when you start reversing out white, grey, and then unbolded white, I would actually like to know how many people can actually read that. And doing that, I think that having an image, which I think, as I said earlier, it's normally really good. But when you've got something like that, it's incredibly confusing. And to be honest, with people like me, it makes the two really old as well. And then my eyesight isn't good, but I can't even read. I'm struggling to even read the third one. So I'm wondering whether we could make that slightly more readable for.
Now, sit that on board then.
There was a question, Ray, I think raised a very relevant question. I know that in another committee was that AI was mentioned specifically of people experience fraud now with people using AI. And the fraud officer in that he said currently they haven't experienced anything. But as night follows day, it will come. You know, and I think, as you quite rightly say, we need to be aware of that and have the right checks and balances in place to deal with it when it's that going along. Beth, have you got any views on this? Because obviously you're doing a little piece of work on this. Has anybody else seen this report? Do you have any comments, or do you want to reserve comment?
I think I'll reserve comment until we put our audit out, but just to update the committee, I suppose, that we are undertaking a current piece of work on the follow-up of the two recommendations which were made in 2023 council report as part of our audit plan. So we're looking to get that out of draft, and I think it's September, so we'll come back to you now.
No, that's okay, because obviously you see quite a lot being added for bribery and corruption and reports from lots of authorities, and my opinion, it follows a reasonable format that everyone else provides. So it'd be useful to see what comments can be made on that if it needs to be reinforced.
Yeah, we are looking at it as part of the audit.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, if there's no other comments then, if you've got the recommendations that we note the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption and report. And obviously, it's a great step forward because we've actually got them this year. So many congratulations, team. Someone prepared the move, please. Thank you. Our second, thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you. Next then is the work programme 26-27.
I think it's only one part. Does anyone know, obviously with the idea of a special meeting for the statement of accounts, I think the forward work programme we would just then move the statement of accounts preemptively from September to November, and then should a meeting be arranged, we can then create a date. It's just so it reflects the work programme that it is on there. Instead of moving it in September, should the meeting have to occur following September meeting, if that makes sense. It's just that type of clarity is on there.
It didn't make much more sense, but my kind of view on this one, and the discussion of which September is not very possible. The work is still going on at the very end of September. However, on the premise that we will have finished the work at the very end of September, I would want the accounts kept open for the least amount of time. Because once they're signed this time, if they're not signed, then anything and everything that comes forward could be a problem. So, if possible, You know, if you say no, and you want to wait till the regular meeting in November, fair enough, there's a bit of a risk involved, but probably smallish, but you know. If you want to go with October, that would be my recommendation, probably the third week of.
If you want my view, I agree with Taylor in regards to withhold the September committee, remove the statement of accounts, and then have a special for the statements of accounts when you say. Fine.
That's fine, and we'll probably know more as we know September.
Yeah, we'll move it to November, because,
Yeah, the November thing was just saying if we were taking it off, yeah, but obviously again, a date arranged in between September, we can put it forward.
we can negotiate that with Margaret, and then we can, you know, it's easier to have a special meeting for one item because hopefully dealt with fairly swiftly. Okay, you're happy with that, Don, because you're like the chairman.
Yeah, I need to go, not even though I'd rather not.
Yeah.
I think to sign off the accounts as quickly as possible is paramount.
Yeah. Amy, sorry.
Do you think we could do the calling from the dealership in November? Because I'm reporting in November, so I could give you my update on the actions and do their calling at the same time. That's quite a hectic one in September, so I'm trying to in November. Okay.
I'm sure the officers will be delighted.
Or I can come in September, but if that's okay in September.
Yeah, just for November. Okay. Sorry, Jason.
My apologies for the very
Okay. All the best people are. Then, if there are no other comments, can I move that the recommendation that we endorse the proposed schedule for meeting subject to those amendments? Some amendment, please. Thank you. Secondly, thank you. And against, no, thank you. Then no items on the further item on the agenda. I think thank you for staying the distance, everyone. Thank you all for your contributions, which are obviously very welcome. And everyone else, oh, you can stand up.